Good afternoon and welcome to the TCPalm editorial board meeting to interview candidates in the election for Vero Beach City Council. I'm Larry Reisman, columnist and community editor, and I'm joined by fellow editorial board members Adam Neal, editor and news director, Blake Fontenay, columnist, and Louise Phillipine and Terry Schlitt, reader advisory board members. Special thanks to our candidates for meeting with us today and streamlining this process by completing questionnaires ahead of time. Board members have reviewed them. Questionnaires and replays of our editorial board interviews can be found at tcpalm.com/elections. At the conclusion of this interview, editorial board members will discuss possibly writing an editorial to recommend a candidate or candidates in this race. I'll lead the questioning and open it up to other editorial board members at the end. We might end up having more of a conversation than just a simple Q&A. Our goal is to be completed in 45 minutes or so. Because of time constraints, we ask that you keep your answers concise. We'll start off with Taylor. Can you give me one example of what you've done in the past year that proves you are doing more than just talking about helping the Indian River Lagoon?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you, Mr. Reisman and the board of TCPalm for hosting this forum. Some of the actions that I've taken to benefit the lagoon, you know, the city is well aware of the conflict and they host many cleanup activities and events. Most of those I participate in with friends and family.
Thank you, Brian.
Question?
The question was, can you give us an example of what you've done in the past year that proves you are doing more than just talking about helping the Indian River Lagoon?
Yeah, same question that Taylor had. One of the candidates that's been out walking the street has been Taylor, and he walked by my house and he could see some of the work that I have been doing. My landscaping is not all lawn. My landscaping holds water back and prevents it from going into the lagoon. And we have some swales that we've lowered so that we don't contribute to the lagoon problem.
Thanks, Brian. So we'll start this next question with you, which is somewhat related. What do you think should be the future of the city's stormwater utility?
I think that the city needs to stop dumping stormwater into the lagoon. I've been saying that for a long time.
Okay, and that's okay. How would you propose they do that?
Well, we're getting ready to move the sewer off of the river, and that will leave us with a water treatment plant. I would suggest that we, instead of just dumping stormwater into the lagoon, let's run it through the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, Taylor?
Yeah, so the stormwater utility, you know, this current council imposed a new tax. To me, it's like throwing an ice cube in boiling water. There's nothing that we can do here in the city of Vero Beach if our neighbors north of us and south of us aren't making any efforts, let alone our own county, who dumps thousands of gallons of water into our own canal. And our residents shouldn't be paying the bill for this. I think we do have an issue with the lagoon, but I think we need to take a more united approach to it. You know, I commend Governor DeSantis. A few days ago, he recently announced $53 million to benefit the lagoon cleanup. And I think that's the type of approach that we need to take. There's nothing we can do here in the city of Vero Beach if our own county is dumping thousands of gallons of water into the canal.
Okay, so Taylor, you know, you just talked about the $53 million. So where should that go? Should the city use any of that money to do anything?
Well, you know, they broke it up. It's something that we definitely need to look into because Indian River County only received, I believe, 1.4, 1.3 of that 53 million. So that may show, you know, there's other counties that aren't doing such a great of a job as we are here in Indian River County. So we would just have to follow up, see where that money's going and why we got only 1.3, 1.4 of that $53 million.
Brian, any thoughts on the governor's 53 million or whatever it was on the lagoon, and what, if anything, Vero Beach should do with that?
Well, I would agree with Taylor that we're one small spot. I would disagree with Taylor in terms of what we can do. I think that each of us individually should be doing something, and I do that in my landscaping. And you can drive around my neighborhood and see other houses that are just lawn, and you know what that stormwater does, it runs right off. So I think that it is important to take a very active role, even though you know that Vero Beach is a small part. We could be a small part showing a positive cleanup by taking the stormwater and running it through the wastewater treatment plant after the sewer has been moved out, and dump clean water in and lead by example.
Thanks, Brian. We'll start with you on this, Brian. How do you propose the city end its longstanding tourist tax and utilities disagreements with Indian River County and/or Indian River Shores?
The county and the shores have been suing this city for 30 years that I know of. I mean, it's just a constant nonstop. And with the water and sewer for Indian River Shores and the South County, that they were very happy to have the city install the water and the lines. And now they see dollar signs and they want it. It's terrible that our neighbors to the north and the county that surrounds us, it's terrible that they continue to sue us on pure nonsense. If they don't want to be supplied with city and county water, with city water and sewer, then buy the system from us. And I remember that as a proposal back when I was on council in 2010. But the Indian River Shores and the county want to just steal it from us. And I'm thankful that we've got a city manager that has backbone and is standing up against the Indian River Shore and county lawsuits.
Thanks, Brian. Taylor, how do you propose the city end its longstanding tourist tax and utilities disagreements with Indian River County and/or Indian River Shores?
Well, Mr. Heady really hit the nail on the head with that one. My approach is all about building relationships. Our city hall here in Vero Beach is no more than 7 minutes away from the county buildings. I think if we were to build a stronger relationship with them, I think through dialogue, it would give us a much better approach to that issue. Same thing with Indian River Shores. Our city hall is no more than 15 minutes away from there. We're all neighbors here. We have to work together.
Thanks, Taylor. We'll start with you on the next question, which is, what's your vision for the three corners the city owns at 17th Street and Indian River Boulevard?
Well, it's something that I'm very excited for. The city council just passed 5-0 on the standing O plan that's going to go forward. The design looks great. All the amenities going there. If it was up to me, I think one area we need to focus on, which I think is the biggest missed market here in Vero Beach, is the boating community. We have a growing marina with a long wait list. We have many private homes with docks, and yet when we go on the boat, there's only one place we can go to, and that's Riverside. So instead of going to Riverside, we go down to St. Lucie, or we go up to Sebastian, and that can go both ways. So I think we need to focus on how can we make this area boater friendly, bring people in from Sebastian and St. Lucie, get them to Three Corners, then transfer them over to 5 in our downtown area.
Thanks, Taylor. I just want to make sure I understand that. Are you suggesting that we not use that we not use the standing O plan, that we add a boat launch there?
Yes. Yeah, you know, they passed it. Nothing is set in stone. It's going to have to go to referendum, presented to the citizens. Nothing is set in stone until they break ground. So I think it's something that I highly encourage whoever gets elected to look into.
Thank you. Brian, same question. What is your vision for the three corners that the city owns at 17th Street and Indian River Boulevard?
The three corners were an income source. In 2004, the hurricanes took out one of the corners, which was the post office. And the city decided, they saw dollar signs, and they decided that instead of cooperating and rebuilding with the United States Post Office, they were going to take that land and close down the lease and create a shopping center. And that's getting taxpayer money invested in development, which is not what should have happened. The city should have honored its commitments, and that would still be an income source instead of sitting there doing nothing. The water and sewer, of course, are an income source, and the electric utility is an income source. We need to find something and invite developers to come in and to bring their plan, because we want to spend their money, not taxpayer money, on development of that property that will provide an income source to replace the income that we lost when we sold the electric. And it just needs to be an income source. And I think that we need to advertise that, and we need to advertise for developers that want to come in and spend their money on the development of that property. The standing O plan is a good start plan that a developer could use any part of, and I haven't seen that. I don't want to see the same thing that happened to the old diesel plan, where it sat for how many years? 30 years vacant. More than that, 40 years vacant. But it's a good example of what can be done with a building, and that reuse of that old diesel plant is a real asset for the community. And there's no reason why we couldn't do the same thing at the three corners with developers' money, not taxpayers' money, with the exception of the wastewater treatment plant. That wastewater treatment plant is a facility that could absolutely clean up some water. And in the prior question, you said the governor has some money. Well, he's got some money that he could give to Vero Beach, and that we could replace the filters, and the type of water that would be going into it is different than sewer water. But there's different filters that they can swap out. There's different things that they can do, and certainly the governor should be interested in having Vero lead by example and showing how we can clean up. And if we did that, and all communities were to cooperate and clean up the stuff that they're throwing in the river, we wouldn't have a problem.
Thank you, Brian. We'll start with you, Brian, on this next question, which is please name up to 3 transportation related, and it's whatever your definition is of transportation, issues the city should make a priority to address.
Well, I've lived in the city over 30 years. I don't have a transportation issue. I have no problem getting around. I walk. There's very little traffic. I've never used the GO Line bus, but I think that transportation is a made-up issue. We don't have a transportation problem here.
Thanks, Brian. How about you, Taylor? I mean, we hear things about twin pairs and all this other stuff.
Do you
have any
absolutely.
transportation?
I agree with Mr. Heady with what he said. There really is no issue. It's just issues that have been made up. The hottest topic is twin pairs narrowing it. Well, this is our hurricane evacuation route. and they want to make this a 2-lane road or 1 lane, whatever they want to do with the twin pairs. I mean, it's going to become like the Long Island Interstate. We live in an area that's not foreign to severe storms. It's something that we have to use. So I think twin pairs, it does need touch. They bring up twin pairs. It's such a big issue. We should look at A1A. During the Memorial Day weekend, we had 2 people lose their lives on A1A, one walking a dog and one riding a bike. Indian River Shores, they made the action of extending their bike lane. It's something that we can possibly explore. As to parking, many candidates say there's a parking crisis. I don't think it's parking availability. I think it's parking accessibility. If we go out to Mulligan's or to Ocean Grill, we may not have a spot right in front every time, so we have to park the car a couple yards away and we have to walk. Something like that could be as simple. Many residents have golf carts. We can offer transportation services on golf carts. Many people come to our beaches. That's a really great issue to have. We have a big park over there by Riverside. If you're coming to the beach, if you're not a resident, you can just park in the park, and we can transport you over there.
Thanks, Taylor. I appreciate that. We'll go to the next question. Taylor, you'll go first on this one. Is the current City Hall a suitable place to do city business for the foreseeable future? If not, what do you envision?
As somebody who's been in City Hall and in the offices, I mean, of course, it's out to date. Mr. Heady may know better than I. Possibly it hasn't been renovated, those offices, since the 70s, 80s. But we do have a very nice chamber where, that I know Mayor Brackett has hosted meetings in instead of having them in his office. As to focusing on City Hall, we have many projects in development right now, 3 Corners, moving our wastewater treatment plant that I think we need to stay focused on right now.
Thanks, Taylor. Brian?
You need to stop finding new ways to spend taxpayer money. Stop.
We'll start with you on the next one, Brian. The Florida legislature and its governor have stripped local governments of several home rule provisions over the past few years on issues from short-term rentals to mask ordinance. Do you agree with the legislature's efforts?
I think we need to replace those legislators that enacted that.
Okay, thank you. Taylor?
Question regarding the affordable housing that they're trying to tackle here in the state of Florida.
Well, let me reread it. The Florida legislature and its governor have stripped local governments of several home rule provisions over the past few years on issues ranging from short-term rentals to mask ordinances. Do you agree with their efforts?
I'm going to be truthful with all of you. It's something that I haven't been focused on. I'm not going to make up an answer for that. A wise man once told me, be an expert at my age. I'm trying to do that as best as I can. Definitely in this campaign race, but I'm sorry, I just don't want to comment on that.
I appreciate that. Which I'll give you another one that might be tough, but most of the folks involved in this race have done some public service or a lot of public service in their careers. You're a political newcomer, so to speak, right? But you may have done things in the past, community service, things like that, served your community in many other ways. Can you talk about maybe one thing that you're most proud of?
One thing I'm most proud of, recently, Vero Beach is home to many retiree residents, but many young adults, including myself, have found this location an ideal place to call home and to start a family and settle down. It's very tough to find youth in the area. And in regards to kind of connecting that issue with my political interest, I helped co-found the Vero Beach Young Republicans. We meet once a month. We try to incorporate engaging activities with public officials. For example, going to big shots or going bowling. we're a political club associated with a certain party, but we're just a group of friends who want to get together once a month to have a drink and to have fun and connect.
Thanks, Taylor. Brian, you want me to ask that question again?
Yeah, Larry, the multiple things that I've been involved with over the years, and I guess helping out disabled veterans is one of the things that I cherish most. And I gotta say something to Taylor. Wow, what a refreshing, wonderful opportunity or experience it is to have somebody actually say, hey, I don't know on that, and instead of just spitting out some. Thank you, Taylor, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, we will. I appreciate you're complimenting your fellow candidate. I think that's great too as well. So let's start with you on this, Brian. What is the most important contribution a member of the city council can make to the people who elected him or her?
Support the city manager and the city clerk, who have done an excellent job for a lot of years.
Okay, Taylor, what is the most important contribution a member of council can make to the people who elected him or her?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I find is I believe we lost our way with these public officials who we elect. They serve us, we don't serve them. We're running to be representatives here and to work for the people. I think some of the past actions that this current council have made, I question, who are they serving, themselves or us? So being an actual representative, being a public servant, working for the citizens. That's been my slogan. Working for you. That's actually what I want to do. For those that cast their vote for me, they're casting their vote for somebody who, I'm going to be their boss, and that's what they're going to get if they cast their vote for me on November 2nd.
Thanks, Taylor. We'll start with you on this next question. You talked about your political affiliation. Can you talk about what role should political parties have in local government?
Yes, that's the one that's a tough one. A very current issue as we see with our friends up in Brevard County. I mean, listen, everybody's guided by a moral compass that they make their decisions on. We have one side that believes government is the solution. We have another side that doesn't believe government's the solution. I think with this being nonpartisan race along with other nonpartisan race, it just causes confusion. Right now in Brevard County, they're pushing for their city council and their school board races to be partisan. That's something that I believe in. I don't know if we're ever going to have it here, but to limit the confusion, to know truly who your candidate is, I think it should be known to the people.
Is that something you'd support here if you were elected?
Like I said, they're my boss. If there's a large group that push for that action, I would fully support them.
Thank you, Taylor. Brian, what role should political parties have in local government?
Political parties should put forth a candidate, and once candidates are elected, they should work for everybody, and it shouldn't be political.
Thanks, Brian. Brian, let's start with you on this one. What is Vero Beach's biggest strength? If you could address that. And then when you're done with that, could you talk about its greatest weakness?
Greatest strength, the weather. Greatest weakness, greatest weakness, it's just too damn nice here. It makes a very good magnet, draws lots of people in.
Thanks, Brian. Taylor, greatest strength,
You-
greatest weakness.
The greatest strength, I don't know if this is official mission of the city of Vero Beach or not, but I was told once before, it's all about sunrises, not high rises. We live in such a special, historic, secret location that I believe we try to keep secret. It's tough to do when it's ranked as one of the top 3 best places to retire. It's nice going over those bridges and to see the ocean on my way to work. But that also correlates to its biggest weakness. People don't like change here in Vero Beach. They don't want to lose this special touch we have, but it's just change is the law of life. And those who only look to the past or present are sure to miss the future. We need to make sure we're pushing for new businesses to open to really rejuvenate this area. We have a lot of abandoned buildings in the city of Vero Beach, and it comes to show, Mr. Heady mentioned the diesel plant. They turned that into American Icon, which has been just such a big success. Walking Tree Brewery, that used to be an old airplane hangar during the Second World War. So utilizing these buildings that have so much history, incorporating them into newer businesses, I think that's the direction we need to go in.
Thanks, Taylor. At this point, I'm going to open it up to the other board members. Louise, Terry, Adam, Blake, any questions from you?
Sure, I'll jump in. Who are we starting with on this round, Brian or Taylor?
Taylor. We'll go with Taylor.
Okay. Taylor, tell me a couple of things that you see happening in the city in the next couple of years that city government can be involved in directly or indirectly that you're very excited about.
Thank you, Blake. Of course. And first and foremost, it's the Three Corners project. I'm super excited for that. I just hope it gets done in my lifetime. As we found, government tends to move slowly. So definitely Three Corners. The city around, I mentioned the airport, a lot of that land around the city or around the airport is owned by the city. I think this would be a great opportunity to either lease or sell most of that land and really make that aviation area for businesses to call home, either restaurants, we can teach over there, just building that area up. Also, our downtown area, we have this great 14th Ave. We have a organization, Main Street, Vero Beach, that in other states is directly affiliated with the local government, but they are operating independently. So I think they have this incredible plan for downtown. I've been told downtown isn't what it was right now. I hope it continues to become prosperous.
Thank you. Brian, same question. What are a couple of things coming up in the next few years that city government can be directly or indirectly involved in that you're excited about?
Well, certainly the city can be involved to some extent on the Three Corners. I would be excited to see that wastewater treatment plant being used to treat the wastewater that is generated by the development, by the stormwater. And other than that, government needs to get back to the basics on what government should be doing. It should be keeping us safe with the police department, fire department, the lifeguards, should keep the parks clean, keep the streets safe, and keep them in good repair, and stop trying to find new ways to spend tax dollars.
Thank you. Actually, that's kind of a good segue. And Brian, I'd like to go back to you to start on this next question. But during campaign season, you often hear candidates talking about ways to cut the budget. Do you see some ways to cut the budget? And if so, please be as specific as possible about what those might be.
We can stop the ridiculous lawsuits. That's pretty specific. I mean, there's lots of them, and and another thing, just recently we saw where the city had code violation liens against a property for the total value of the property. And how do we get to a point where government is so intrusive that they decide you violated some code? I don't know what, you didn't mow the lawn to the right height, and all of a sudden you wind up with these incredible liens. My goodness, we can do better than that.
Thank you. Taylor, same question. Areas of the budget that you think might require some cutting, and please be specific on your answers to that.
Yeah, of course, that's a tough one. I know our general funds right now are close to 24, 25 million. It seems like every council that comes in, they keep adding to this list. We just need to stop. As Mr. Heady has said in previous forms past, we can't spend as much as we take in. As to exact items, that's just something we would have to dive in, roll up our sleeves and dive into that budget and see what we can cut out of that.
Thank you. No other questions from me. Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. Louise, Terry, anybody? Okay. I've got one more question and then we'll wrap it up. My last question, I guess we'll start with Taylor on this, is can you please give us an example of an ethical dilemma you have faced at some point in your life? Please give an example. And how did you decide what to do?
That's a tough one, ethical dilemma. On the spot, that's a tough one to look back on. Not one really comes to mind, but and as I mentioned, being the president of my certain group, it's tough to be a part of that group right now. You can't abandon your principles, and that's something that I think our public servants have to stand by. You can't abandon your principles, no matter what it is, no matter what the stance is, just to achieve more votes. I just think that it's just wrong.
Thank you, Taylor. Brian, have you ever, can you give us an example of an ethical dilemma you faced at some point in your life and how you decided which route to take?
Absolutely. It certainly is an ethical dilemma when you have to decide whether or not to sue your fellow citizens by suing the city for their wrongdoing. And sometimes you have to think long and hard as to what the consequences of such a legal claim, or filing a claim, a lawsuit against your fellow citizens against the city. But sometimes when you look at it, the greater good, and I'll give you a good example. When I was first elected back, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, they were refusing to allow certain citizens to speak, specifically those who wanted to see the electric power plant sold. I wound up in federal court suing the city because they wouldn't allow people to speak. And my goodness, no citizen should have to face that kind of an ethical dilemma to sue their fellow citizens. But in the final analysis, the cause of action was taken away because they decided that they were going to allow. And then for a couple of years, we had citizens that were free to come to the public podium and free to speak their minds. And that's not what we have now. We have a mayor, this particular mayor, Mr. Brackett, has pointed to the police department in the back of the room and, and told me either sit down and shut up or we'll have them remove you. And that's terrible. But the only legal recourse that I have against that kind of wrongful action is to sue the council members and the city for their wrongful actions.
Thanks, Brian. So we're at the point now where we give you an opportunity to wrap up. Is there anything that you'd like to let us know or like or you'd like to let the public know?
Starting with me.
Start with you, Brian, then we'll go to Taylor. Yeah.
Well, you're going to go to Taylor. It's nice to see somebody young in this race and taking a part in city life and city government. And it's unfortunate that we don't have more of that. And perhaps Taylor's entry into this race will excite some younger people and have them do that. I'm an old man, and you can't have the Dick Wingers and the Brian Headys or the Ray Nevilles or all these old people making all the decisions for the younger people that are going to grow up and have to live with those decisions.
Thanks, Brian. Taylor, your opportunity to sum it up.
Yeah, of
Anything you want us
course.
to know?
Before that, I just wanted to thank Mr. Heady for those comments. As we discussed in this forum, Vero is in a very crucial juncture right now. And I believe in order to manage these issues efficiently, we need a good balance of experience and new ideas. I can represent a voice never heard before, being a younger resident who isn't retired. Like Mr. Heady mentioned, the reality is my generation is going to live with the consequences from the decisions being made today. And I'm running because I'm concerned what type of Vero Beach we're going to inherit in 20 to 30 years. I just hope to build on Vero's strong foundation with a new perspective.
I appreciate that, Taylor, and thanks to you and Brian for coming on today and meeting with us. Again, the election will be held on November 2nd, and these interviews, there are several others you can find at tcpalm.com/election. We also have questionnaires there as well. So again, thank you both for joining us today, and we'll catch you on the campaign trail. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.